The title of this video, The Unforgivable Sin, maybe gave you some initial thoughts before you even clicked on the video. Maybe you're expecting to hear some really salacious sin, something that we consider really bad, like murder or sexual immorality or something like that. Or maybe you saw the unforgivable sin and you're thinking about the things that you feel really guilty about, the things that you're wondering whether you're forgiven for or not. However, that's not what we're going to be talking about for the unforgivable sin, because there's only one sin that the Bible lists as unforgivable. And it takes place within a story about Jesus in the book of Mark. Jesus is in a house that is crowded with people. It was so crowded that he wasn't even able to eat. And he's there talking to the people, teaching the people, but there are also some other people there, the teachers of the law. These were the guys that were always following Jesus around and causing trouble for him. They were the people that really loved the old laws of Moses, but didn't want to accept the gospel that Jesus came to preach, this gospel of forgiveness of sins. They loved behavior. They didn't really like the forgiveness, the gospel aspect of Jesus' teaching. And they were making accusations against Jesus. In fact, they were saying that Jesus himself was possessed by a demon. And Jesus goes on to say, how could someone possessed by a demon also cast out demons from someone else? Jesus had gone around casting out demons and fighting against the kingdom of Satan, so to speak. A kingdom wouldn't be divided against itself. This doesn't make any sense that Jesus would be demon-possessed. And then he goes on to rebuke these teachers of the law, and he says this: whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven. He is guilty of an eternal sin. It says he said this because they were saying he is an evil spirit. Those who reject the gospel, those who reject Jesus, have committed the unforgivable sin. Now you might ask, why? Why is that the unforgivable sin? Well, we know that the Holy Spirit works through the gospel. Romans 1:16 says, I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes. The Holy Spirit is working through the gospel to create and strengthen faith in people's hearts. And so, if you are rejecting the gospel, if you are rejecting Jesus, then the Holy Spirit can't work through the gospel because you won't even listen to it. You are rejecting the means through which God intends to bring you grace. That's why this unforgivable sin is often called the sin against the Holy Spirit. Because if you're sinning against the Holy Spirit, you're sinning against the means through which the Holy Spirit works, which is the Word and the sacraments. This forgiveness that God has won for you through Jesus cannot be delivered to you because you have rejected those means. That's a scary thought. And God help us that we would never reject his means of grace. But there is great comfort within this section as well. Because you may feel like you've done something that is unforgivable, that God couldn't possibly forgive me for something like this. Yet Jesus says, just before what he said in verse 29, he says this: I tell you the truth, all the sins and blasphemies of men will be forgiven them. Whatever you think is really bad, whatever you think is unforgivable, Jesus says it is forgivable. He took those sins on his shoulders and he went to the cross and died for them. You're not going to be punished for sins twice because God already punished his son for you. That's the gospel comfort that we receive, and that's the work that the Holy Spirit does in strengthening our faith. It's through that gospel. May He continue to strengthen and grow our faith as we continue to be exposed to the gospel and to His means of grace.